All right, people, we are back. The weekly show with Jimmy and Joe is back. I am back in the office today, not in a van down by the river, which I know everybody was really excited about for a while, and I couldn't figure that out. I got more comments about doing that thing from a van down by the river than I would have anticipated, but I guess that's just the way. That's what you do, Jimmy. That's leadership, man. You take it on every way that you can, and that's what we did last week in a van down by the river. So we're going to talk about leadership today. Leadership always, because it's always about leadership. Joined by my man, Jimmy Casas, who is not in a van down by the river, but he is here with us, making life trouble for me, I'm sure, as we get going. So welcome to the show, Jimmy. How you been, man?
Good morning, sir. I've been good. I've been really good. I'm excited about the week that's coming up because part of my work is in Pennsylvania, and so that's awesome that I get in a car instead of on a plane. So that's exciting. Right. So looking forward to that. Honestly, what I'm really looking forward to is talking to my daughter. She did 3 continents in 3 months.
That's a lot.
And so she's been living her best life. So that's awesome. So I'm super excited for her. Excited to catch up with her, listen to her last experience, see the pictures from it. But she was just down in Peru hiking. So you know that, Joe, kind of like running, except it's safe, right?
Running's dumb. So are you doing some research so you know all the continents that she went to? Because I don't know if you know all of them. So are you doing a little research just to make sure that you can talk to her about it?
I know there's 7 of them. I know that for sure.
Boy.
And I know
we're talking about. I know you're not in schools anymore, so I want to make sure that you knew that stuff.
I know the 3 she just did, so now I'm only need 4 more.
That's all that matters.
That's it.
That's all.
And I know Iowa's a continent. I know that because it is the most important state in this country, right there. IOWA.
Yeah, that's right.
So just in case you're wondering, by the way, we play the Ohio State Buckeyes today. So Iowa, Ohio, Idaho. I mean, I feel like we're all related, but
I don't know.
We are 28-point underdogs today, Joe. But I think we're going to beat them. I really do. So
not,
Bobby Dodd, if you're out there today, you're going down. Ohio State, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Dwight Carter, you too. All you Ohio State people. Yuck.
I don't understand. There's no chance you're winning that game. There's there's zero chance you're winning that game.
Yeah, our defense is pretty good. Here's what I'm going to say it's going to happen. I think the score of that game is going to be 35-6, and they will cover by 1 point. That's my prediction. You heard it here first on the weekly show with Jimmy and Joe. I am now going into the sports book.
You said 17 seconds ago that they're going to win. Now you're just coming off of that?
Yeah, I was joking. I'm going to the sports book business after today. You will watch this. You heard it here. I hope when it lands 35-6, I can't wait to just share that clip of the video out to the world and say, see?
Nobody's watching this thing anyway. I mean, people can make a lot of money, but there's like 4 people, and my mom's on there too, I'm sure. So there's 3 people that are going to bet. That's not going to work for us, I think. So
we're going to be hotter than Barstool Sports, Joe.
No, we won't. Not at all. Not a chance. Not a chance. But that's okay. We can keep dreaming, Jimmy, and that's okay. That's fantastic. It's good to be with you today and talking about leadership. So I was doing my walk this morning, the walk to work this morning. That hopefully I'll be able to get out at some point today if I can get away and edit it a little bit. But I was talking about this whole concept.
No, it only takes a minute. What do you mean if you can get away? It literally takes you 1 minute.
I understand, but the captioning of these videos take literally 10 times longer than the walk, right? Like I can do a
1 minute walk, 3-hour captioning.
Right, that's right. I was doing it this way, and now people know if I'm doing the walk and they see me, they know what I'm doing, so they'll like beep the horn. I had a teacher drive by me today as he was doing. He's like, "You're gonna have to do it over. You're gonna have to do it over." I'm like, come on, man, you're killing me here. But he was pretty excited about that. I'm sure I'll hear about that. So anyway, but I was talking. The thing I was talking about this morning was that there's this whole concept of when do we stop being proud of things that we do, right? Because I was in a 4-year-old kindergarten class and I was watching these kids do things, and they looked up at me like they had just split the atom. Right. And they were so proud of the work that they do. And then I think about where the adults in the building are, and the adults in the building are not nearly as proud of the work that they do. The work that they do is incredible, but they don't tell anybody about it. I walked into a 4-year-old kindergarten class and I had people, well, there was one kid that said, I'm scared of the bald guy. But the other kids that I was there ran up to me and started talking to me about all the stuff that they were doing, what they were playing with, the Play-Doh, the things that they were making, all the stuff. They were so proud of it, right? And at some point, there's a shift. And I've often talked to people about this whole concept of being proud of something versus defending something. And there's a distinct difference between the two, because I can tell you what you're proud of right now by looking at your phone. If I look at your phone and look at your Photos app, I'll tell you exactly what you're proud of. Kids, pet, house, car, hunt, fish, cabin, boat. It's all on your phone. And you talk about that stuff all day because you know you're going to walk out of those conversations feeling better than when you walked in. When I walked out, when those 4-year-olds walked out of that conversation, they knew they were going to feel better than when they walked in because they knew I was going to say, how did you make that ball of Play-Doh? Like, I mean, that's the stuff I was going to say, right? But what happens? Where does it change? Because at some point we start defending the work. And when we're always defending it, then it turns into another job. And then we don't want to do it. So we start avoiding conversations with people because we're afraid of how we're going to feel more intense or worse when we walked out. And I just was wondering, like, when does that change? When does that whole concept of talking about things that you're proud of change? And I think one of the things that I think we got to be cognizant of is if people don't feel comfortable talking about the great things that are happening in their classroom, can we be the ones to help them talk about the great things that are happening in their classroom? What are we doing as leaders to extend the conversation about the great things that are happening to people who don't see it? And if that's all we do, if that's it, then maybe that changes the way that people talk about the great things that happen in school and in classrooms. And I mean, I just like when people feel frustrated and overwhelmed, it's easier to feel frustrated and overwhelmed when you don't realize the impact of your work. So if we can help them realize the impact of their work, they might still be a little frustrated and a little bit overwhelmed, but not nearly as much when we're going through the process and knowing that the work has value versus something that just needs to get done, right? If I'm really into it and I really feel like it's having an impact and it provides purpose, if it provides purpose every day, if I can find purpose every day in the work, it's much easier to do that work, or it's much more meaningful. When I don't find purpose in the work, it just becomes a checklist item. And that's where people get frustrated because checklists don't end. Purpose keeps continuing as well. So we got to figure out what we can do on that side, because I was just like, that one hit me just in terms of the difference and how people talk about the work. So there's 8 minutes of me just rambling. So good for
I love it, Joe.
8, but that's
I love it. I love it. I love seeing Joe Sanfilippo fired up because it's so rare. I mean, the energy this morning is
good.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I really appreciate that. Hey, listen, for all of you out there this morning, if you have a problem of practice, something you want to share, a thought, a comment, or a question that you want to throw into the chat box, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you, Sonia, for your comment there. Thank you for Christy for joining us. If you are on the weekly show live, I see there's a few people. And if you want to introduce yourself on there, let us know who's watching or following today. That would be great. Joe, here's the thing that I was thinking about when you said that. I was writing a couple things down. The first thing is you said, when do people stop being proud of the things that they're doing, right? Whether it's students in the classroom, teachers in the building, and what are we doing as leaders to bring, I don't know, attention, recognition, whatever happens to be the case to that. The first thing I thought of was, I wonder why people stop being proud of the things that they're doing, right? And I feel, again, like there's a reason there. Maybe we don't know what it is, and it's probably different for different people. But it is a reminder, and I think what you're sharing is how intentional we have to be sometimes to really recognize the things that are going on. And I think, again, about the importance of just slowing down and how can we be really intentional. And I think about like a faculty meeting, or when we come together as a building leadership team meeting, how we can just really say, hey, before we get started today, let's just talk about what I'd like you to do is share one thing right now that you're really proud of. And there's that intentionality again, because I think the more that people get comfortable talking about those things, I think the better for all of us. Yeah. And I think it is an intentionality there to try to recognize, because we know there are so many great things going on in our schools, but I also think it's human nature to focus on the things that aren't going well, right? Or the things that we're not getting, or the things that are not happening. And so I think part of that is just kind of human nature, but I also know it's different for different people. So I think it's going back and really finding out why that is. We also know this is that I believe that educators are kind of a humble group of people, right? We're a humble profession by nature. And it's funny to me all the time is that sometimes we can also be whiny, right? That we complain that we don't get enough recognition, and it's really not even recognition, that we don't feel valued, that we don't feel appreciated maybe. And yet when people give us compliments or thank us, we are quick to dismiss those. And so sometimes I feel like we're again still in that, oh no, and or not saying anything or dismissing it or giving credit to somebody else right away. And I feel like it's because we're such a humble profession. I think sometimes people think, well, I don't want to come across as arrogant, right? Or like I did this all by myself.
Right.
I do think it's important that we recognize and accept the compliments. It's okay to say thank you. It isn't being arrogant. I think it's okay to say thank you. And hey, by the way, like you did last week, hey, thanks. I really appreciate that. But honestly, Jeff did most of the work on that, or whatever happened to be the case, and where he helped me. And so there is this kind of back and forth where we all know that oftentimes there's more than one individual that are a part of whatever that success or whatever that pride thing is. But here's the last one, Joe, and I really want your thoughts on this and see if you agree or disagree with me on it. But I also think sometimes when we're talking about things that we're proud, it kind of, to me, falls into that idea of recognition sometimes. And I do think that there's a hesitation sometimes for people not to be want to be recognized in front of other people.
Yeah.
And so the question is, why is that? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it can be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe there's a personal history. Maybe there's a story behind that. Maybe that's just not the way they see themselves, or maybe, and this is the case that I think is often the case, is that people worry about what their peers will think about them if they're recognized in front of other people. And there's just jealousy, right? And that's a reminder why cultures are so important, because if we can't even take time to recognize the great things that our colleagues and peers are doing in the classroom, or recognize the things that people are doing, then I think it says something about our culture. Yeah. And I think that's probably the overarching theme for me. And I'll give you an example, and it's not only a personal example, but it's an example I hear all the time. And that is, I still go into places today where someone who has been recognized as a teacher of the year, in about 2 weeks, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. with 50 state award-winning principals, 50 state award-winning APs who are the principals and APs of their state for 2022. And I am so jacked up to be a part of that ceremony and that gala.
Mm-hmm.
And but here's the thing. I know there will be some people, when this is all said and done, that they'll reflect back on that moment, that proud moment, Joe, and they'll wish it never happened.
Yeah.
Because it'll almost be the worst thing that ever happened for their careers, because people are jealous. And unfortunately, that's just as a reminder that their cultures aren't necessarily healthy, and that we do live in a society today that oftentimes those who rise to the top, we want to celebrate them, and then other people want to tear them down. So it's always that, and I think it's even harder to be honest with you, I think it's harder for women. I think it's harder for minorities. I think it's harder for individuals who maybe are part of a representation of another group, because other people are looking up and wanting to bring them back down, right? It's that whole idea of bringing them back into the barrel, right? Don't you go be successful because it makes me look mad type thing. Yeah. I'm just curious if anybody in the audience that has any thoughts on that or their experience with that. And I'm not saying that's the case every time, but I know it was the case in my situation. And I think it's the case in many situations of people that I talk to in their experiences. And it's just a reminder why culture is so important, that how do we develop these cultures where we can all be proud, where we can all celebrate, and where we can all be championing for other people in our profession, and especially in our buildings, to be great and to be successful. And that is how we create a high performing culture when we can get there. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, buddy?
I think the first thing with that struck me when you were talking was we're a humble profession. And I think that there's the being humble. I understand that. And I think that we also feel like we're a service organization. Like we serve kids, we serve the community, we serve the public. And at some point along the way, service and silence became the same thing. And I don't think that's right at all. I think you can still serve, but you don't need to be silent to serve, right? Like you can, and if, like I said this morning, if you don't feel comfortable talking about yourself, I get that, but that does not stop you from telling a colleague what you saw them do and how proud of them you are, right? I mean, what if we start there? What if we just start there? Because if we create a culture where people are willing to say something about their colleagues that's great, guess what? That all comes around on some level. And I think it happens at different times of the year too, right? At the beginning of the year, we do it a lot. In the middle of the year, we don't do it as much. And at the end of the year, we do it more because it's time to get out and roll out of town, right? So I think we got to be really cognizant of how we can help people in that spot. Think about the last time that you did that. Like I just wrote an article for our newsletter, and I said that when's the last time that you told someone you were proud of them, right? And then think about that. When's the last time that you told someone who you are not related to that you're proud of them? Because those are two different. I tell my kids I'm proud of them all the time, right? But how often do I walk down and tell a 7th grade teacher that I'm proud of her? How often do I talk to a 5th grade teacher about how proud I am of them? What happened last night? We lost our football game last night, and I went over to the coach and I said, I just want to let you know I'm super proud of you. I'm so proud. And what did he do? First thing he do is don't be proud of the kids. Be proud of the kids. Well, yeah, I'm proud of the kids too. But guess what? I'm proud of you, man. You bring it together. So can I be proud of both people? I'm proud of both. I'm proud of all these kids. I'm proud of the families. I'm proud of the parents. I'm proud of them for doing it the right way. Like we lost. Hey, we lost, but I'm proud of the way that they competed. And I'm proud of, oh man, I just it makes me nuts that we can't just be proud of people and tell them. Because then all of a sudden it comes with a qualifier. Doesn't need to come with a qualifier. I'm proud of you, man. You did a great job. Let's go.
Yeah. It's funny as soon as you said that, because the first thing I thought of, and then I think you came back and you said it, right? It's kind of like the phone call home to the parent, right? What's more meaningful? Hey, I really enjoy having your kid in class today, or I really enjoy having your student in my class, or your son in my class. Or is it more meaningful to say, hey, I really enjoy having your son in my class, and here's why?
Yes.
I want to share with you that almost on a daily basis, right? It's that extension of the proud of you, right? Like, why are you proud? And you just said it, right? You just said to the coach, hey, I'm really proud of the way, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the way you compete. I'm proud of the way, right? And it's a lot more meaningful, because I do think sometimes it can kind of be almost come across as a little flippant, right?
Right. It's like, how you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you really want to know how everybody's doing? Because if you did,
because I'm not doing well.
Like, and I do that all the time. Like, how's it going? How's it going? Have a great day. How's it going? How's
you
it
just
going?
keep walking on.
How you doing?
They don't respond because I don't want to stop and have this conversation.
I do it all the time. I am awful at it. Awful, because it's comfortable. How you doing? And then, but when they do say not good, I'll stop. I'm like, all right, hey, can I help that? Is that something I can help with? Nope, that's okay. Okay, I just want to let you know if you need anything. Yeah. But how often do I go and follow up with it too? I mean, that's important too. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, we're getting into the weeds there, but
those are two good points, right? That we slow down and we ask, but then we stop and listen, right? We just fly by each other in the hallway and we hear fine, and we just keep moving on. Great, we just keep going, and there's a perception sometimes, like, do we even really care, right? If we did, why didn't we just stop and stay in the conversation, right? And engage in that conversation, like you talk about all the time, like, why can't I just stay there for 30 seconds and have a conversation with this individual? And it's going to be more meaningful, right, than just flying by quickly. And again, I know you can't stop every time, but we can be a little intentional in doing that every now and then. So,
and we can be intentional about the timing too. But think about it. I talk all the time. I'm talking every time I've ever spoken for literally 9 years. I've had people do that 30 second stare into the eyes activity just to how uncomfortable is it to be here for literally 30 seconds, next to a partner? How uncomfortable is that? And versus, and then you take the 30 seconds and do something else. 30 seconds is a long time.
Joe, you know what would be really awesome? What? That thing you just did? I wish you would do that for like 30 seconds. I just want to see what people think when you do that.
Can you imagine us just sitting here for 30? If we sat here for 30 seconds and did nothing, first of all, people would be happier that you're not talking. But the other thing that they would do is like, that's really awkward. Like, it's just, people are just sitting there and they're like refreshing are they really working? No, that's a long time. You can do a lot of great stuff. Lynn has a great question about teachers of the month.
Yeah.
Does it cause people to resent them? Is there a better way to recognize the great work without making teachers uncomfortable? So here's a really interesting thing about Teachers of the Month that I think, this is a personal opinion, okay? But if you do the Teachers of the Month, do you feel like that ends up being like on a rotation where you have to pick somebody? Are they really the Teacher of the Month, or is it just their turn in the list? Because if it was the Teacher of the Month and you have somebody that's crushing it all the time, wouldn't that person then be the Teacher of the Month every month, right? I mean, you could essentially, if we're taking ballots, right? If we're talking about what's going on, that might not be the case. I think it's more important that it's not even the Teacher of the Month. You could have you could have a staff spotlight where it's not like, they did this person, so they're the best teacher of the month. Maybe it's just that you're highlighting one person throughout the course of the month. I think that's awesome, and I would absolutely do that. But if we're making an award like you're the best teacher this month, I think that ends up being, it does get people to resent each other, to be honest, because it turns into a competition that doesn't need to be had. So, that doesn't stop you. It doesn't preclude you from recognizing people in terms of what they're actually doing. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Joe. I think you just shared that, and that is, we'll define what we mean by Teacher of the Month, right? Like you just said, is it a spotlight? I think it's bringing clarity to the entire staff, what we're doing and why we're doing it and what it will look like, right? And why it's important that we do these things. I think sometimes our own culture determines what is healthy, what is not healthy, or is it ready for it, I should say. Is the culture ready for that type of recognition or spotlight? And hopefully for a spotlight, it would be. But again, I think that's where, how healthy is the culture? How are we communicating to the staff what the purpose of that spotlight is, why it's important, and how do we begin to cultivate that type of environment,
right,
that can happen without creating some sort of undercurrent issue, right, in our culture. So I think you're spot on there. So I like the questions this morning. So thank you, Ashley, really, and for your comments as well. I appreciate that. Lynn, your comments on there.
I agree. Friday Focus Staff Spotlight, easy and quick. I totally agree with that. There's just the idea that we can get stuff out there and celebrate them. And if we're going to do this stuff, though, let's make sure that we get some more leverage points out of it than just a Facebook post or a note out to the staff. What can we do? If I'm just trying to think. So if Penny Lobby is a teacher in 7th grade, what if she's the spotlight staff member of the week? It's great that we can celebrate her on social media. We can celebrate her in terms of sending an email out. But I also know that her son's a senior. So am I going to walk down and make sure that her son knows how great she is? Absolutely. I know her husband. I saw her husband last night. Am I going to send him a text message, let him know that she's the spotlight staff member of the week? Yeah, absolutely. Because now we can get some momentum. One of the things I think that happens with us as we get, in schools is there are often times that we don't feel valued in school. And this is everywhere, and it's here too. There absolutely, when we get overwhelmed, we don't feel valued. And that is not we're not talking about utopia in Fall Creek, Wisconsin. This happens here too. But when we get overwhelmed, all of a sudden what ends up happening is we start to wonder where our value is. And then we go home and we're overwhelmed from the work that happened during the day. And we go home, we can't explain everything that went on at school because we're not, we can't at the same time. So we walk between two places that we don't have value. So if you can connect value to the two places, even if it's a text message to a spouse, a family member, a kid, having a conversation, when you can create value between the two places, now all of a sudden you get a staff member that walks with more purpose. And that goes back to the beginning of what we talked about. When you walk with purpose, when you connect with purpose, when you know your purpose, when you know why you do what you do, it's a lot easier to deal with all the overwhelming stuff that we have to do. There was that got to conversation we had a couple weeks ago, right? We still have to continue to know and understand what the purpose is in terms of the work. And if we can be the person, if we as the leader can be the person to connect that purpose, then we're going to have happier staff members.
Yeah. Yeah. I still go back to the word, right? Spotlight. What's the purpose of the spotlight, right? I kind of think of it more of a highlight or a spotlight, but because we're trying to highlight a staff member, not because it's a competition, right, who's better and, right, and that type of thing, but it's more about telling the story. Who is this individual, right? And learning a little bit about them to cultivate those relationships so people can get to know their story and know who they are. So I love that whole idea and conversation about spotlight, highlight, and we can go into all sorts of recognitions and things, whether it's celebrating or recognizing. We get back to honor rolls, and there's all these conversations, right, about awards and all these types of things. So I don't think we'll go down that rabbit hole today, but I think that is a conversation at some point. I know it's been spoken or talked about a lot, but I want to kind of continue this conversation now that a couple people brought it up. I think it was Ashley talked about this whole idea, and Sonia talked about a Friday focus. And so it's interesting, right? Here's what I'd be curious to know is, and I don't think people need to respond to this, but kind of reflect on this, is in some ways I'm still surprised, but in other ways I'm not. But I still think it's best practice for a school leader to have some sort of weekly communication, a weekly bulletin, a Friday focus, a Monday memo, whatever that is. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I wonder why that doesn't happen more and why it doesn't happen, right? Is it because, one, principals get off to a good start, or leaders get off to a good start and mean well and want to do that, and then it becomes overwhelming, or it's one more thing I have to do, or it's, geez, every Sunday night I got to get the Monday memo ready, or every Thursday night I have to do the Friday focus. So is that part of the reason? Or is part of the reason they're worried that people won't read it, right? That people don't read it. So, I'm putting it out there and people really aren't looking at it. So I'm just curious, for those that are on live today with us, is talk to us a little bit about your weekly memo and why do you not do it? What's the benefit you see coming from it? And do you believe it's valuable? And does it bring value? And is it important? And why or why not? Or why is that the case? So I'm just curious about that. My personal opinion, obviously, we'll share that always. We're not saying we're right, but I do think it's a really important tool that first of all, I think we need to model that. Number two is a leader in a building. I think we constantly use the weekly memos, the bulletins, the focuses, whatever you want to call them, as a way to continue to share our vision, to continue to highlight, spotlight people, to make sure that we're getting information out in a timely manner to help people stay organized and to remind people what's coming up. So I think calendars are important in that. There is a lot of things going on. So I think the more that we can put out there. I still believe that it should be done electronically and still old school. I still believe that. I know some people won't agree with that, but I do think communication should come in various forms, because there are still some people, I don't know about you, but I still like sometimes doing something handwritten. I still want to be able to see something visually as opposed to always electronically and everything. So I'm just curious to where people's thoughts are on that and what they would add in terms of their notes or the reasons for it. And if they're not doing it, maybe consider to do it or to start doing it again if it's something they used to do. I will say that it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of. It's because my mentor taught me the importance of that. And that was only of many of all the things, there's probably only about 2 or 3 things I probably was able to do consistently over 22 years. And that is one thing that I know that I don't know if my secretaries appreciated it or my APs, but for 22 years, I put out a weekly bulletin every Monday morning called the Monday Morning, the weekly memo on Mondays. So, but I just think it's important, but I'd just be curious to see what people think.
Yeah, I think that there's I think sometimes the comfort level is housed in the group that how well you know the group and how large the group is, right? Like, I think a lot of times we get comfortable because we see these people every day. And I think about it with our administrative team too. How often I see them every day, but I'm awful at providing like a weekly at a glance for our administrative team. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times it's because I feel so comfortable in that when I'm here, I'll see all 4 of them every day that I'm here. And so it just, I think a lot of times it gets lost in the weeds, and that what gets lost in the weeds is the consistency in the response. And that's on me. That's 100% on me. And because I just feel comfortable having conversations with people, walking down a hallway and having the conversation, when that conversation, is between 2 people, yet at the same time, it could impact a third person down here, and having it on paper or having it on a document is much more helpful down the way. So that's certainly something
I'm looking at people's responses in the chat box, Joe, and I like this, right? Because people are giving some different ways they do it, different names, different ideas, different reasons. So thank you again for those that are out there sharing that. I think that's really helpful, and sharing and taking this opportunity to share what you're doing in your schools. Again, and this is a group that no one's going to throw any hate at you. And this isn't bragging. This is sharing, and this is serving, and this is helping your colleagues.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
again, these are just opinions and thoughts, and what are people using out there. So thank you very much for sharing those. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Monica.
Wow,
those were all great ideas, and I like the reasoning behind it too. So thank you for sharing that, Bruce. Thank you for the reason why behind that. Again, I think these things are always helpful, but I don't, I think most would agree that some sort of communication, ongoing communication, is important. It's the how to do that, the why behind it. And here's one more thing, Joe, too. I still remember early on being a little frustrated because I felt people weren't reading it right. Yeah. And so I can still see that meeting, sitting down with my building leadership team and saying, hey, I need your help. So let me ask you, I want to do this. Here's why I was thinking I want to do it, but I'm also making some assumptions. What are things in there that you want to know about, right? So the point of it is sometimes maybe we should ask ourselves, staff, what would they like to see in there? And I think that's something that brings value to as well. So, but for those of you that are doing the weekly communication, kudos to you. I know it's one more thing, but I also think it's a little therapeutic, right? It's a little bit an opportunity to slow down, get your week kind of organized in your head, and kind of think through it yourself, because sometimes I think it's important for us to make sure that we're organized, and that it's a reminder for us, and it's a intentionality to, hey, we got to make sure that we know what's happening this week, because we need to stay on top of it as well. So,
and it also gives you a chance to, if you did miss something, that you get that opportunity when you put it out there, that people are going to tell you, hey, what about this? Isn't this added? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Totally missed it. Thanks for letting me know. Forgot about it. Or I had no idea about that. So I'm glad that I do now, right? So it kind of gets you out in front of that stuff, which is, I think, a big deal too. And if you have a culture where you can have that conversation where it doesn't feel like, I got you, look at you, look what you forgot, right?
Yeah.
And you're willing to do it. If you have that culture where that is the case, where you feel like you're being caught, then it makes it harder to put out every week.
Yeah, and there's different platforms to use, right? S'more, Google, and there's also templates too. So we'll put the email in here for the weekly show with Jimmy and Joe. If someone is interested, if you want to email me, I'll send you a template. If you just want another model or another example, if you're looking for one idea, I can shoot you one. So if you email us, I will respond back, and I'll send you a couple templates if you want to take a look at them. Again, I'm not saying to use them, but it's always another way. Sometimes people are looking at different ways to present that information, so I can share a couple of examples with you. So would be happy to do that. So we'll drop the email in here, and then that way people can reach out to us privately, and we'll send that to you. So hopefully that helps somebody out there. So well done, everybody. Joe Sanfilippo. Hey, listen, one of the things Joe and I have been really intentional about is trying to be really respectful of people's time. We also know that, you know what, it's a long time to sit for an hour listening to these two yahoos, two bald guys talking on a Saturday morning. So we're trying to give you all a little reprieve. So let's see here. I'm still waiting for the email here. We'll drop that in here. Let me look that up, make sure we got it. Can we drop that email in here? Listen to me talking about behind the scenes people.
That's
like
right.
We got a whole team going on here.
Yeah,
you guys
right.
think it's just Jimmy and Joe? Oh no, we got people.
Email.
Look at that. Look at that.
Email.
Look at that, Joe. It's just up just like that.
Look
See how
about
it
that.
is?
Oh, look. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's just like
all
that.
our people, all our people are coordinating at the headquarters in New York, making sure everything behind the scenes is taken care of. And we got it going on. All right, Jimmy, I'm going to go watch cross country. We're going to crush it today. I got a good feeling. With the cross country teams. Both of them are going to be fantastic today. I am so excited for them. Great kids, incredible coaches, nice day to run. I mean, yesterday we lost the football game, but I was so proud watching those kids, man. Oh, man, they compete. Man, did they compete.
That's
so,
right. Joe, I want you to remember this before we go. 35-6. Okay? 35-6. And by the way, it's either 35-6 Ohio State, or, you ready for this? Upset Iowa. Let's go Hawks. Woo!
I'm going 42-12.
All right.
42-12.
Got it.
All right.
We'll see.
Good, guys.
All right. Hey, here's the good news. We still got our coach, Joe. I don't know about you Badgers. I don't know what's happening up in that world, but you guys
you're bragging about that? Are you? Is that bragging?
Hey,
Really?
don't be hating on my man's parents.
I just want to let you know.
Hey, do you know Brian, the assistant coach, was my one of my students. Yep.
Really?
Absolutely.
That explains
Coach Ferentz
a lot.
came to Iowa City when I was there back.
Explains a ton. Explains a lot.
Yes, he's been there. Ever since I was back in City High. So yeah, good people, great family. So
awesome.
Hey, anyway, look at Jim Wichman. Jim Wichman says Hawkeyes by 1 million.
Jim Wichman is wrong. There it is. I mean,
and there's Travis Bloom. We are what? Penn University? University? Is that what it is? What is that?
We are.
That's right. We are Penn State. That's right.
We are 0-1 against Michigan. That's what it meant. We are 0-1 against
That's not. Those are fighting words, Joe. Hey, listen, everybody. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Got you, Travis.
On the weekly show with Jimmy and Joe. Hopefully, you'll join us next weekend again. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Peace.
Take care, everybody.